Okay, welcome. So today I've been asked to make a reflection about masks. And so today I'm going to talk about masks and for me how it links into mental health and just my own position on it and yeah, just some reflections and some thoughts about it. So enjoy. Okay, so I had one of my subscribers ask me a few days ago called Andrew Killick. He asked me about masks. He's just saying that he's wearing, certainly in most countries, they're saying that masks are now mandatory, that you have to wear them. And he's just sharing that my understanding of what he's saying is that he doesn't feel comfortable with this and it doesn't sit with him. And he says, what's your feeling on this, Piers? So thank you for the question, Andrew. That's really helpful to have questions. So yeah, I'll go back to 2004. So 2004, I was living in a Buddhist monastery, and I'd been there a couple of years. And it was a winter retreat. It was January, I believe, and it was the beginning of the Iraq War. America had just invaded, and because we were on retreat in the monastery, there were no newspapers, and I decided that I would, we didn't have access to the internet, we weren't allowed to, so all I was getting was information from other people. And it was during those times that I realized that there was a Western perspective about the Iraq War, and there was a Iraqi perspective, and somewhere in the middle was the truth. And lo and behold, a few years later, the Western perspective about weapons of mass destruction, it comes to light that they didn't exist. And therefore, it really made me realize that what we're told in any given situation is one perspective. There's always another perspective to anything. And what I'm loving about the current situation on one level is that we have access to information. And I was listening to Lord Sumption, who in the UK was the Supreme Justice, so basically a judge. He was kind of that, I think that means that he was one of the leading judges in the country. And I was listening to him speak, and he's just saying that he does his own research. And he's seeing, for example, that COVID-19, it's starting to bottom out. The curves, although there are more cases, and you can go, maybe I'll put in the bottom of this video a link to some studies, and basically what he's saying is that although there have been more tests, there have not been more deaths. And he's saying a lot of the people who've been testing positive are under 50, and those people will not be affected by the coronavirus. A lot of it will be asymptomatic, and it means that, they might get a snivel, they might get a cough, but it won't affect them on a big level. So what I suggest to people, re-masks, is to do your own research. And again, I'm happy to put some links in the bottom around the masks. And what I would say from there is to make your own decision. My own perspective on it might be very different from what you understand. And it might be different from someone else. And it's to go with that, to trust that. That's what I feel. And for me, this is really key. In this time of these, challenges that we're going through in the world, is there is two perspectives. Fear, which is what we're being taught in the media, what we're being taught by governments, fear, 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 or joy, love, into elevated emotions, in elevated states. And for me, I see that sometimes when I look at the information, I do the studies, I have studied a lot into these perspectives. Sometimes it's easy to get lost in the fear. And that's why it's really important to remember, do the research, but don't get lost down the rabbit hole. Go down and then come out. And I often say this in my videos, it's like this infinity loop. You go into the shadow, you go into the research, and then you come out the other side. You remember the joy, exercise, being out in nature, your meditation. It's like that loop. We don't get lost here, and we don't get lost on this side in the Pollyanna effect of just denying that there's a problem. So, what is my perspective about masks? So my perspective about masks is, personally, I don't feel it's appropriate for me to wear one. And what anyone else does is totally different. Why I feel that I won't wear a mask is to do with mental health. So I'm all about mental health. As people who've read my book or who have been seen my videos, I've had a breakdown in my 20s, and I've been passionate about mental health in that time since I recovered in 2000, around then, mid-2000. That's been my passion. How do we find mental health? And listening to Dalai Lama speak yesterday, him saying that, we're talking about the physical, we're talking about this, but we're not looking at the mental health. And that, for me, that's why, for me, I won't wear a mask, is to do with the mental health aspect. And I'll explain why. So, if you think that with wearing a mask or with doing these measures that they're talking about, lockdown, stuff like that, for me, that's helping to stop, according to the governments, to stop the spread of coronavirus. The head of the CDC came out the end of July to say that there will be more deaths through suicide, through depression, through malnutrition, almost, I think he was saying double the amount, through those things than there will ever be through COVID-19. So it's like we have these measures in place, like wearing masks, social distancing, like being locked down, which, might save 1 out of 1,000 people. But it's going to kill 2 or 3 out of 1,000 people. So partly that I don't wear a mask because I feel that in my community there are people who won't wear a mask because of mental health. They will have a breakdown, they will have panic attacks, and they're frightened of going in shops. And partly I don't wear a mask is to go, look, I'm supporting those 2 or 3 people. As I shared in my video a month ago, one of my uncles killed himself, and there's other people in this community who've killed themselves because they're locked down, because they're wearing a mask. So for me, a mask on a very kind of psychological level is like you can't see someone's face, you can't see them smiling. And for children it can be quite scary. Indeed, it's said that a child, a young baby, develops an understanding of what a human is by seeing a mother's face. If they can't see a mother's face, then they don't recognize the mother. So they don't know what it is to be human. And therefore, for me, walking around the shops, it's like without a mask on, smiling at people, especially those people who are not wearing masks, and they might not be wearing a mask because they're mentally, struggling. And therefore, to be there, it's like supporting them. And I might be wrong. I'm not saying anybody else should not wear a mask. What I'm saying is, for me, in my perspective, with my work, it's like it feels important for me to not wear one because, I'm supporting those people who are struggling. I mean, there's and that's one perspective of it. And I probably could talk for 20 minutes about this because, there's lots of health, questions about masks anyhow. So for me, one of the things, I think it was the British Medical Journal, spoke about masks is most masks, even the the N50, 92, N95 and the N99, even these kind of clinical masks, they have holes in them which are 0.3 microns, okay? But the coronavirus itself, the mean value is 0.125. So it's almost like you can get 3 coronaviruses through these masks. So they're not actually stopping the coronavirus getting through. So, another thing is, there's lots of medical research out there just to say that, masks, they might work, but there's also a huge amount of information saying that they don't work. Actually, what they do is they hold disease. If you wear a mask for 2 hours, then you've got the viruses kind of collecting on your mask itself. So I think, again, like I said about the Iraq War, there's the Western perspective, so there's what we're being told in the media, and then there's the alternative. And what I would suggest is to do your research. And some of the people who have done a lot of research, like medical scientists or doctors, one of them is Dolores Cahill. So she's Irish, and she's been I think she is a virologist or something like that, scientist. And so this is what she studied for 20 years. And she said, masks are not a good idea because they're based on the idea of disease and the idea that you need to have medicines in order to deal with the disease. And she says there's another aspect which is saying about immune system, about herd immunity, and that, again, I don't have all the science on it, but she's saying, she travels everywhere, she won't wear a mask. She has all the scientific basis there. So, then people, the question is it selfish not to wear a mask? And some people might say, I am being selfish. And that's true. Some people could say that. And yet how I like to see it is that it's like, okay, so 1 out of 1,000 will be saved by me wearing a mask, but 2 or 3 out of 1,000 will die, according to the CDC, because I am wearing a mask, because I am social distancing, because I am doing these things. So I'm not saying I'm right. What I'm just saying is just kind of weighing it up. And in my heart, it feels, and my wife is, a very strong woman, and she's like, she will not wear a mask. On a psychological level, again, masking. It's like hiding. It's, you could say, it's like, I guess it's to do with like slavery, putting mask on. So, and I'd say the last thing about mask is follow your heart. Do the research, have a look, go down the rabbit hole, and then come out. And I'll put the names of some of the scientists that I've kind of looked at who've researched some of this. Another one is Sherry Tenpenny, and I do have a document here from Sherry Tenpenny, which is 4 pages of regarding masks that they do not work. And there's lots of different studies about masks. But again, I don't say that these are right. These are just a different perspective, and I might be wrong. I'm quite happy to admit that I might be wrong, and but hopefully I can, I've just shared a little bit about why I'm not wearing a mask, partly to support others who are struggling mentally, and to I feel we are believing everything one side says. And then those that are not believing that are being shamed. And yet there's a huge body of evidence here to say that masks don't work. That actually, the virus has stopped. And I'll finish on this point, is that, and I'll put the link to this video in the bottom, there's in the UK, from July, the pubs opened and people didn't have to wear masks. And what this guy is showing is that he was saying something like 6 million people probably have been through the door since July through till September, footfall, etc. He said if masks worked, if they worked and people weren't wearing masks in pubs, and they're not really socially distancing, then you would have seen a huge spike in cases and deaths. But in the UK, the curve just continues to go down and down and down, all during that period where there were no masks. So just another perspective on it. And I feel what is important here is that we have our different opinions and we bring it to the open. Some people might be right, feel they're right, others might feel they're right. For me, we're all individuals and we all have our own opinions about things. And hopefully this just gives a different perspective. And as always, please do leave any comments below. And if you have any other reflections you'd like me to talk about some of the other things, and I have done a lot of research into this because I feel it's important for us to know, but it's also important not to get lost. Remember the joy, remember the laughter, remember the love, remember seeing that all these challenges are bringing us to awaken. We are awakening now. Change is uncomfortable, and I can see a lot of people are struggling. Remember, come out, remember your joy, remember going out into the woods, going out into nature. I've just been for a barefoot run and just out here with the courgettes and the kale in the greenhouse because it's raining, and remembering that joy. So many blessings to you all, and may you be safe and may you be well. Okay, take care.